All right, so ready to really dig into Jack London's The Call of the Wild.
Absolutely. It's a story that's ripe for a deep dive.
We're talking about more than just the plot here.
Right. We're going to uncover the deeper layers, the symbolism, the themes that make this book such an enduring classic.
Exactly. So even if you've read The Call of the Wild before,
Even if you think you know the story.
this deep dive is going to give you a whole new perspective on Buck's journey.
And more importantly, perhaps, what that journey reveals about us.
Okay, so we start with Buck, living the good life in California.
Right. Living like a king, you might say, especially compared to where he ends up.
Yeah, he's Judge Miller's companion, enjoys the California sun, totally domesticated.
And that contrast is crucial because London doesn't just throw Buck into the Yukon.
He gives us that glimpse of comfort and even luxury.
To really emphasize just how drastic the shift is.
So from that comfortable life, he's suddenly stolen.
Thrust into this completely alien world of sled dogs in the harsh, unforgiving Yukon.
And that's where we really see this transformation begin, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's more than just an adventure story. It's about this primal instinct that gets awakened.
You almost get the feeling that London is asking, how easily can civilization be stripped away?
Exactly. And he uses Buck as this kind of experiment in a way. So Buck goes through this brutal training
He's got to learn the law of club and fang.
the hard way.
Yeah, and it starts with that brutal encounter with the man in the red sweater.
That's such a pivotal moment. Up to that point, Buck still operates under certain assumptions about the world.
Yeah, like there are rules.
Exactly, but the man in the red sweater, he shatters those rules. It's a brutal introduction to the reality of the Yukon.
And then there's Curly. Poor Curly.
Yeah.
Tries to make friends and ends up.
Another harsh lesson. And London doesn't shy away from that. He wants us to see just how quickly things can turn deadly.
You really feel for Buck in those early days.
He's forced to adapt, and he's forced to adapt fast. He's learning that showing weakness.
Can get you killed.
Exactly. And then, of course, we have Spitz.
Talk about a clash of titans.
Right. This isn't just a rivalry. It's symbolic, I think, of the two sides battling within Buck himself.
The civilized dog versus the primal wild instinct.
And each challenge, each confrontation peels away another layer of that domestication. The Yukon awakens something in him.
And it's like, alongside all that external stuff, there's something else going on with Buck too, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's like there's something calling to him.
Yeah, that call of the wild London keeps bringing up.
And it's easy to, misinterpret that, I think.
How so?
Well, it's not like a literal sound, right? It's not like a bird call or something.
It's more like this primal pull he feels.
Exactly. This deep, instinctive urge that's getting stronger and stronger. Like you see it in those moments when he just stops and stares into the forest.
You can almost feel him, like, remembering something he never even knew.
That's such a good way to put it. London, he's a master at using those sensory details, to make you really feel what Buck is going through. Like, he talks about the hair rising on Buck's neck and the way he starts to understand the ancient instincts.
And then there's that amazing scene, I think it's right after he first gets to John Thornton, where he encounters the wild brother wolf.
Oh, powerful scene.
And it's not like a threatening encounter or anything, right? It's almost like Buck is seeing.
A reflection of himself.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's this moment of recognition, right? Like,
Yeah.
this is what he could be, what he might be destined for.
And it's interesting because even though he ends up going with Thornton, going back to, some semblance of a domesticated life,
That pull, that call, it never really goes away. It's always there, simmering beneath the surface.
which brings us to John Thornton. He really throws a wrench into things, doesn't he?
How so?
Well, I mean, up to this point,
Mhm.
it's easy to see the story as this kind of straightforward battle,
Yeah.
civilization versus wilderness. But then Thornton comes along, and he represents something much more complex.
Right, because he's not just some heartless human exploiting the Yukon. He clearly loves Buck, and Buck loves him right back.
Yeah, I mean, he risks his life for Thornton over and over again.
And that's what makes this such a fascinating turning point. Because it's been so easy for London to just portray this primal instinct as something that always wins out, that always pulls Buck back to the wild.
But with Thornton, there's this genuine love and loyalty.
Exactly. But here's the thing. Even though Buck loves Thornton, that wildness never fully disappears. And London makes that so clear, even when we really don't want to see it.
Yeah, like that hunting humor he talks about, or the way Buck remains totally dominant over the other dogs.
Exactly. Those glimpses are crucial because they show us that Thornton's love, as strong as it is, can't fully erase Buck's true nature.
It's almost like London sets up this happy ending, right? With Buck finding a home with Thornton.
Right, like he's finally found a balance.
But
then come the Yeehats.
and it's brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, London doesn't hold back.
No, he doesn't, and I think that's important. Because it would be easy to romanticize this idea of the wild, of Buck going back to his roots.
But London makes it clear that this is a harsh, unforgiving world.
Exactly. And survival is never a guarantee, not even for Buck. So Thornton is killed, as are the other dogs.
And Buck is just alone. Again.
And this is where we see just how far he's come. Because this time, he doesn't just mourn. He doesn't just react.
He makes a choice.
Right. He could easily stay there, right? Maybe
Yeah.
try to survive on his own. But that pull, that call of the wild,
It's too strong.
he joins the wolves. And we're left with this image of him running with the pack, finally embracing his true nature.
It's such a powerful ending. But it's also really ambiguous, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, is it a happy ending, a tragic ending?
Because on one hand, he's lost Thornton. He's lost this amazing bond he had.
But on the other hand, he's answered that call. He's found a kind of freedom he never could have had with Thornton.
It's like London wants us to decide for ourselves. To look at Buck's journey and ask, what would I do?
And that's what makes The Call of the Wild so brilliant, I think. It's not just a story, it's an experience. It stays with you long after you've finished reading it, and it makes you think about the world, about your place in it, in a whole new way.
It makes you question, like, what does it even mean to be civilized? To be wild?
Exactly. And do we all have a little bit of that wildness inside us, just waiting to be awakened?
It's a lot to ponder. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend picking up a copy of The Call of the Wild. And if you have read it, well, maybe it's time for another visit to the Yukon with Buck. It's a journey worth taking again and again. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.